I've got here a Canon 6D and a Canon 600D. The Canon 6D is a full frame camera, while the Canon 600D is a crop sensor camera. Means the 6D has a bigger sensor. First of all, on a full frame camera you not necessarily use different settings than on a crop sensor camera. Means in the same situation you might use the exact same settings. So it is not the case that only because you have a bigger sensor you can use a lower ISO value, for example. But you will probably use the exact same settings on both cameras. You cannot use all lenses on full frame cameras. Let me explain that to you on a simple sample. We've got here a full frame sensor and a crop sensor, and a EF lens and a EFS lens. If we now put the EF lens on the full frame sensor, it will give information to the whole sensor. Same for the crop sensor, even though it will not use all the information because it is smaller. But if we put the EF lens on the full frame sensor, not the whole sensor will be provided with information and the outer part will have a strong vignetting. On the crop sensor lens it still fits. That's why you can only use EF lenses on full frame cameras, while on crop sensor cameras you can use both types. You can recognize an EF lens on the red dot, crop sensor lenses on the white dot. Generally speaking, EF lenses are more expensive than EFS lenses. Now let's take some pictures with both lenses with the same 50mm lens. You can see that the picture of the crop sensor camera is more zoomed in, even though we use the same focal length. This is because of the fact that the crop sensor lens cannot use all the information the lens provides. In order to get a similar picture, we have to do a bit of maths. For Canon lenses, we have to divide the focal length by 1.6, for Nikon lenses by 1.5. 50 divided by 1.6 is 31.25, so let's use a 30mm lens. Now the picture looks very similar, but it still is not the same. This is because two pictures with a different focal length cannot look the same. If we look back on our two pictures with 50mm, we can see that the picture of the 600D is simply a cropped inversion of the 6D. Now we also see why full frame cameras tend to have a smaller depth of field. In order to achieve a similar picture like a crop sensor camera, they have to use more zoom, and as we all know, the more zoom you use, the smaller the depth of field will be. But there also is an advantage of crop sensor cameras. Focal length divided by 1.6 is the focal length for a crop sensor camera. Means if I take a picture with the 600D with 200mm, I will actually have a zoom of 320mm. So in order to reach the same picture on a full frame camera, I would need a lens with 320mm. Especially for wildlife and sport photographer, a crop sensor camera is useful because the picture will be more zoomed in. One more advantage of a crop sensor camera, as we already learned, a picture taken with a crop sensor camera is a zoomed in version of a full frame picture. Most lenses are much softer at the corners, so you pretty much cut out the soft corners and use the more sharp middle part. One thing to consider is that full frame cameras are stronger under low light and also have a brighter dynamic range. Unfortunately, I cannot explain the technical reasons for that, but maybe someone else can explain it in the comments. Full frame cameras can create some really amazing images even under low light conditions. But as I have explained it, they also have their downsides, which you need to consider as well. And with a bit of knowledge and some nice lenses, you can create really good images with crop sensor cameras as well.